And now, it's time for another episode of 20 Questions with your host, Peter Hazelwood.
Hello, today I'm delighted to welcome the magnificent Catherine Redgate, an artist with a uniquely captivating style who's also published her own board game called Water's Edge. So welcome, Catherine, and thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, thank you for having me.
Now let's hope that the technology allows us to do this. I'm getting a bit of lag, but we've tried everything else, so let's just get on with it. Okay, well, first up, please tell us where you're based and what you do for a living.
Sure. So I'm based in Aberdeen in Scotland. I would like to say that my art and illustration is what I do for a living, but at the moment I also work 4 days a week for a medical charity. So I've just stepped up to be an assistant manager there. So there's arty elements to that. I run the Art in the Waiting Room project and do the website, do leaflets and the newsletter and that sort of thing too. So there's still arty elements in there, but we're slowly tipping the balance to bring it more to the illustration side too.
Yeah, oh, that's nice that even in your day job you do get to do some of the arty stuff, so very good. What's your first memory of playing board games?
Gosh, I actually had a thought about this question because I watched one of the previous episodes that you did and this came up. I was like, oh, I wonder now. So I think probably a game called Sorry, which is one that my mum had as a child growing up, and it's a properly old school sort of board game. I actually just picked up a copy on eBay the other month to replay it again. So it's still a lovely game, but it's definitely a traditional board game. What you would call sort of not rolling the dice. They use a pack of cards for the dice, but moving your pieces around a simple board. But no, that I would say that was probably my earliest.
Isn't it fun when you get those games that you do have some kind of sentimental reason, like maybe you from your childhood or whatever, and there was a particular game from my family and that was the Great Game of Britain, and we loved playing it and we loved the person who we were playing with, and then once we found it and we played it again after I got into modern board games, and I was sitting there going, yeah, it's not great.
Interestingly, my partner really enjoyed it and found a copy at his school. He works in a primary school, so they ended up playing it there as well. So this one, it still has its touch, but I think it is a nostalgic touch, definitely.
Nice. Okay, and when did you get into modern board games?
That probably would have been, we were on holiday in Scarborough and came across a wee board game shop tucked down an alleyway, and it was our first kind of self-catering cottage holiday together, and we came across Kodama, that must have been 2016 or 17 maybe, so fairly recently actually, but the board game collection has sort of grown since then.
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't got it on the list, but I might have to put it in. That would definitely be very illuminating. How many games do you have in your collection? I might come back to that.
Good.
We'll.
Yeah, no problem. Time to count.
Oh, well, that's another one, isn't it? Do you know how many board games you own? Okay. So I tailored a slightly different question for you, considering that you're an artist, primarily, or at least that's what you want to be primarily. Do you consider yourself more attracted by themes in games or mechanics?
I think because I came to develop Water's Edge through I actually aimed to write a storybook, and I was trying to work out the best way to tell the story and get people immersed in the illustration. So the development of Water's Edge was very much the theme, and that prompted then what each card meant. So the cards were telling the story, and the players were sort of immersed in the story, and part of the place, part of the location. But I think playing modern board games as well, the mechanics are always really, really fascinating, and that's often what keeps us in the game. So I think definitely a balance of them both would. Yeah, I don't know if I would choose one over the other. They very much merge, I think, together.
I mean, I think that's a fair and probably a good answer, but it sounds almost like potentially theme first and mechanics after. And I know what you mean. I'm probably more of a mechanics guy, but at the same time, if I'm drawn to a theme, I'm more likely to try a game first, and then if I like the mechanics of the game, then it's done its job. It did both. I think that's.
Yeah, I guess in terms of selection of choosing what to play, I think probably the theme is the thing that catches my eye. I tend to not even look at how you play; it's more the artwork and the little pieces that draw me into a game first, and then then we worry about how you actually play and what you're actually doing.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, what game would you recommend as an underrated gem? So maybe something that you think probably has flown a bit under the radar.
Because I think I'm still sort of finding my feet with the modern board games and kind of popular ones. I think the one that probably springs to mind is something similar to Water's Edge in the sense that it was done by a couple who launched it through Kickstarter, and I came across it at the Glasgow Comic Con before COVID hit, so a couple of years ago now. But it's called Sandwich Masters, and it's again probably a hint of nostalgia there, because I'm pretty sure I had a kind of burger building game when I was younger too. So this one is very much a pack of cards, but you're building up your sandwiches, and there's various bad fillings that then knock you off or knock somebody else off, and it's quite fun.
Again, that's a lovely theme, and I have seen the odd burger game, but it's certainly not been overused thematically.
No.
Oh, my good friend Matt Warwick, he basically, he's a Kickstarter fiend, and he backs a lot of food themed games. That's very much his genre. So maybe he'll have to check that out.
There's quite a few food themes though. When you start looking into it, I think there's a chai tea and things where that's a current Kickstarter. Yes. I was keeping an eye on.
Yes, I saw that pop up earlier as well. I'm not much of a tea drinker, so that's not so appealing to me. But I did just buy Alubari, which again is about tea, and that's fantastic. So
nice one.
All right. So in 2019, you ran a Kickstarter campaign for Water's Edge, a game that you both designed and obviously did the artwork for. Oh, and there it is. Oh, that is just lovely, isn't it? I do mean to get my copy. So, was designing games always an ambition of yours?
No, not at all. It hadn't even crossed my mind. We actually came up with a concept over an Indian meal in January, and we went home that night and cut out all the kind of very rough paper scrappy cards. I think I've still got the full set somewhere actually. And it became then about the mechanics and what card did what. And it was all sparked from a conversation of wanting to try and get my storybook sorted, which is still not done. The game overtook that, but it was so fascinating having picked up recent games and discovering it's so much more than your standard kind of snakes and ladders or or whatever. There's so much more to games. It was just it was really nice to then sort of have a look into how we could do that ourselves and be inspired by other ones too. Yeah, okay.
So considering that you're 5 years, but I guess most people call that relatively recently into modern board games. How did you find developing a game from the ground up? How did you manage that?
Lots and lots of practice, or not practice, but trial runs and trial goes. I think the first time we did it, we didn't have the starting cards as they are set out in the game now. So each player starts with their lighthouse base, the boat, and an ice house, whereas we kept the ice house in the actual pack initially, and the game just fell flat. We couldn't get anywhere because we were all waiting for the ice house to come out. So that was a sort of illustration of how to definitely fine-tune a game, and I think from there it was amazing. It fell into place. I can't explain it. But I think it's sort of thinking about elements of like fungi, how kind of cards move along, or just different ways to bring cards into the game, and it just kind of fell into place. It's hard to explain. Well, I'll report back after I've done my next game as to how easy that one is. Whether it's in a kind of natural knack or if that was just a fluke.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not suggesting that. I think if I think about sort of every designer I've had on 20 Questions so far, and I've asked them sort of how did he start designing and all the rest of it. And I think there's a lot of crossover in that you just kind of, it just happens one day, and if you're dedicated and you put in the work, just like I don't, I have had 100 board game designs of my own, and I have yet to get anywhere really with mine. It takes some perseverance, I guess, but also there's clearly some talent there to bring it all together. So I think that's very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the main ideas behind it was trying to build a setting. Again, linking with the book, it was to try and immerse people into this location. I wanted people to come and visit this little fishing town. So using the cards to build up your kind of scene in front of you. And yeah, just every card has its place. When you start getting sort of into that theme, you kind of think, oh, well, what elements and how could those cards work in a game setting? So like the ice house, it's got it can only hold so many fish, but if you've got extra people, then maybe it could hold more. And yeah, every card then ended up having a purpose, which I think really helped spur the way of it going on as well.
So why don't you give us your brief summary of Water's Edge for anybody who hasn't come across it so far?
Sure. So it's definitely a family game, so 2 to 4 players, and you are basically spending a week in this little fishing village. You're catching your fish and taking it to the ice house, and then eventually selling it to the town that you're building up in front of you. But there's a couple of twists to it. So only certain actions can happen during the day, and some at night. So you might get stuck sort of fishing at night because you've not got a full lighthouse to see what you're doing. So there's other on-land things that you can do during the night. So yeah, there's different twists. And then player interaction as well. So like the cheeky seagull comes in and he'll go and fly and steal a fish off somebody else's boat and pop it on yours and this kind of thing. So
that's lovely. I really, when I said I was a mechanics guy, the one thing that definitely bucks that trend is I'm definitely a sucker for that sort of that storytelling kind of element. So Above and Below, for instance, is one of my favourite games. It's a sort of fairly average kind of Euro game, but then you've got this lovely adventuring where you go down the caves and it's very atmospheric and you're running into interesting characters and stuff. And I find that very appealing. So when you say you started with this wanting to bring people to the little fishing village, I think that's lovely. And people can pick that up from your shop, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Available through my Etsy store. That's the probably the easiest way. But I do stock to a few different shops, and Zatu actually stocked it for a while too, which is very, very exciting.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's excellent. That's the big step, isn't it, from Kickstarter campaign to actually getting it into retailers. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Very good. Okay. Well, so I've got a more general question for you now. So Kickstarter is a platform you've used a number of times, but for quite a varied range of products. So I would say, how did you find the experience of running a board game campaign on there specifically?
So that was the very first one I did, and having explored Kickstarter in terms of backing or seeing what other games were out there, I sort of knew the big pool of it. There was a lot of game following and a lot of interesting campaigns. So I did my research a wee bit to see what sort of content that was helpful to have on the page. I think the one thing I didn't include at the time was the actual manual to the game, but I've learned since that that's quite a common thing to share amongst others anyway. So, but no, it was good. I think I approached it with a sense of not really knowing how it would go, or not really expecting anything either, because I was an unknown person launching this random little game. I wasn't too sure where to pitch it, so I kind of went all out and did a little games launch at a local cafe and encouraged people to come along, try out the game, and then back it hopefully from there. I ended up ordering a trial run of games themselves to send out to games testers as well. So and I think it was in the radio, and I think I even got into the local paper actually, which was quite good. So I really tried to push it in terms of the PR side once it was launched. But no, I felt it was really good. And I think having sold my own products and things, I sort of knew the process of manufacturing and sending out and that sort of thing. So that side didn't worry me at all. Because I was launching it at the time when I had this game pretty much ready to go, rather than sort of just needing the funding to then start the game or anything. So that was, I think, probably reassuring from my side. I think I would have been in a bit of a different state of mind if I still had not a game in existence, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and and I think there is a real a range between people who have, the game is absolutely the finished article, and then you have those who, arguably in a way, are sort of being more true to crowdfunding in that they're sort of, I'm coming to you with an idea, and if you like it enough, you'll help me develop it. And I very much, in a way, I wish that was more the case for Kickstarter these days, in that you could just come with an idea, with a concept, somewhat fleshed out, but it didn't have to be the finished product. But I don't think I'd run a campaign like that myself.
I know. I think it takes confidence to do that. Confidence in your in the final abilities. I know on various campaigns I've backed, there's inevitably different issues or different decisions along the way as well. So I think, from my perspective, as the person running it, I'd very much like to know what I've got ready to go, just for security sense.
No, definitely. I mean, how can you price up? I mean, you can't even. How can you offer a price for something that you don't even know what the final product is?
Definitely, and even that side took a lot of research things too. Yeah, there's a lot of legwork behind a campaign, definitely.
Which leads me very nicely onto my next question, which is, have you got any tips for first-time creators considering using a crowdfunding site like Kickstarter, for instance?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I learned with a few campaigns actually is, although you want to give enough time for people to back it, don't make it too long, because there's always that dip in the middle where people start cancelling and it's like, oh no, what's happening? So that's probably the first one. Don't worry about making it a shorter campaign. I've learned to now keep mine to about 2 weeks maximum. Wow. Although I've heard people do shorter than that. So I don't think I would go shorter than that, because it's nice to have the time yourself to respond to backers and do little promotions and engage people, and you still do need time for that too. So I think that would be one. The other one, I was surprised with how many people contact you to say, we can promote your Kickstarter of thing. So be aware that will come through, and that's generally not something you need to respond to unless you want some support there. But I'm trying to think what else. Be definitely not flexible, but extend your timelines enough to give you enough time for the turnaround, because even waiting for the Kickstarter money to come in after the backers are collected, and that whole process does take time, and then it goes on from there, and then postage and all the rest of it. So make sure you give yourself time to deliver as well, I think.
That's very interesting about the length of campaign. So we're building up to Tranquility the Ascent, and we have a planned launch date of the 28th of June.
Okay.
We've actually moved that back to the end of the month. We were going to aim slightly earlier than that, but having heard from the UK Games Expo guys and basically saying, well, all things are showing that we can go ahead with a live show, and we were already intending to exhibit. So I felt like, okay, well, let's still launch at the end of June. We're going to run it for just long enough so that anybody who demos it at the expo can still back. But that's resulting in probably a 35-day campaign.
But then that could have positives too, though, because I think that would be very important to capture that audience, is definitely time it with PR. So I wouldn't be too concerned. That's just my experience.
No, it's a really interesting observation. I don't think there's any arguing with. We love going to conventions and putting our games in front of people. I don't think there's any argument against that, but maybe I should be considering just launching in July, perhaps. But anyway, we'll.
It depends how much advertising, I guess, you've done around it, and how many people are anticipating that date, because I know I've got it in my diary.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, obviously we're starting to gear up on that, but oh well, fingers crossed. Yes, so I understand you have a regular stream of commissions keeping you busy in addition to your day job, but have you got any board game related projects in the pipeline at the moment?
I do indeed, yes. My partner, who is co-designer of the Water's Edge mechanics, anyway, the rest of the stuff was more me. But we've been looking at another concept probably since, gosh, last March, I think. We were out walking, and just our local walks in the middle of lockdown, but got to speaking about different concepts, and we definitely have one lined up that's much more on your kind of almost machine building style. So thinking about like Imaginarium or Everdell, or that sort of idea of building up. And I love those games with all the kind of tactile bits as well. So that's something that I really want to explore and see what might be possible. Not a clue where I'll start with that, but we need to get the concept of the board game finalised first.
Very cool. Well, I shall look out for that. Okay, so you already mentioned Glasgow Comic Con, so I was going to ask you about, do you enjoy going to board game conventions, and are there any you would recommend?
I've never actually had the opportunity to go to one,
wow.
I've since stumbled across Essen as a name that keeps popping up, so I know that's the kind of biggie one that's accessible from Europe or from the UK anyway. But apart from that, I actually am not aware of any others, so I really need to have a look and see. Saying that, no, that's a lie. Tabletop Scotland was going to do one in Perth, and I actually did book in for a stall or stand there with Water's Edge, but then COVID hit, and that was unfortunately postponed. So yeah, maybe 2022 I'll actually have a stand at one.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot recommend a lot of conventions higher, really, from my perspective, even as just somebody who went along for the kicks. For me, like, the UK Games Expo is the highlight of my year. Forget Christmas, birthdays, anything like that. It's the thing I look forward to the most. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully end of July. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. We've got a holiday in July. I wonder if we could time it.
Okay, so now it's time for the quickfire round. So I'll ask you some slightly less complex questions, and if you can give me your quickest answer, that'd be really cool.
Okay.
Okay, favourite meal?
Lasagna.
Books or films?
That's hard. I tend to go through periods of reading books. Films I definitely get through a lot, but then you could ask me what film I watched the other day and I couldn't tell you. So let's go books. They stick more in my mind.
Cool. Most interesting place you've visited?
Oh my goodness me. Not the Blue Lagoon. What's it called? The place there's a place in Iceland, a loch that's got all a lake, whatever it is. The glacial lake in.
I know the one you mean with the blue water.
Yes, yeah. Not the Blue Lagoon for swimming, but the actual one with icebergs on, and you can take a boat and go and sail. That's the word. Sail around the icebergs and right up to the glacier that's coming down. So yeah, probably something like that.
That's pretty cool. Biggest achievement?
Probably Water's Edge, actually. Seeing it through to the end and having a finished game in my hand is really, really cool.
Nice. Last board game you played?
Ooh, Pandemic.
It's amazing how many people have been playing Pandemic during COVID. It just seems completely weird, but everybody's doing it.
I know, we've named our purple one COVID-19.
Favourite board game artwork, not including Water's Edge?
Oh, darn. Probably Everdell, actually. I really like the Everdell work. Or Kodama. I love Kodama too.
I do like the artwork in the Kodama, and Andrew Bosley Everdell is stunning. It's probably the most beautiful game I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, this is a physical dimension question. Biggest board game you own?
Ooh. Are you talking the layout size or the box on the shelf?
I wrote this question down earlier, and I was thinking you could answer either way, really. For me, probably the answer is the same, but it might not be for everybody.
Okay, I think recently then I guess Ticket to Ride Europe, which we've only just started playing, that is a big spread, which we're delighted that our new dining table fits. So yeah, probably Ticket to Ride, or otherwise in Everdell with all its expansions.
That is, yeah, it has a fairly big presence. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I do own other games other than Everdell, just to say.
We'll have to have a bonus round. Okay, well, that's quickfire round done, which leaves me with a single question, and it is now the regular finishing question, and it's who do you think would make a good guest for 20 questions?
Oh gosh, that's hard because again, I play the games, but I don't always take in who's actually played. And my friend actually pointed out a couple of games that were actually done by the same person. I was like, oh, I did not not realise that at all. Go with the guy who designed Isle of Cats, because I know he's got a new Kickstarter coming out, and it was interesting to read his response on the group recently and on Facebook. So, I don't know his name though.
This is Frank West of the City of Games. So he did the City of Kings and, of course, Isle of Cats. And yeah, so we're both members of Board Game Trading and Chat UK on Facebook. And really interesting question that somebody posted about, should we be releasing expansions on Kickstarter? Why are they doing that? And I and others pointed out, actually, Frank he's a one-man company. You think, because you see Isle of Cats everywhere, that therefore it's a big company and they've got masses of money and all the rest of it. Why are they using Kickstarter? He's highly successful, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, I know. It's like yes, I worship.
Well, he's also
my dream.
He's also fairly local. He's at Bristol and I'm in Wiltshire, so yeah, I should definitely talk to Frank. So
I know. I think that sort of situation gelled with me very much because that is what I do as well. So with Water's Edge, it was very much a one-man band. So yeah.
All right, brilliant. So yeah, that's our 20 questions. So I'd like to say a massive thank you to Catherine for giving up her valuable time. If people want to search you out, where should they go?
My website is probably the easiest. So just Catherine-Redgate.co.uk.
And the name is just up there on the screen. You should be able to.
And you'll recognise the logo, Bear on a Bike. I really should rename myself to Bear on a Bike, actually, but that's my logo, so keep an eye out for that.
Oh yes, this is the first time I've got to do this. This is my favourite coaster now, probably. This is your work, and it arrived, and my wife was very, it's just gorgeous. I know it's not Bear on a Bike, but it's very, very, it's the similar vibe. So.
He's one of my very original bears, one of the earlier ones. So yeah, that's cool. Yay!
All right. Well, thank you so much, Catherine, and take care.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
You've been watching Board Game Hub. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like the content. Until next time, farewell.